It is special member function of the class. See, we know that we have a normal member functions in a class as well, but this constructor is called as a special member function of a class. Okay? Now, how constructors are different from normal member functions? Because there are functions as well, and we have constructors which are special member functions. So, how to differentiate between them? So, constructor has the same name as the class itself. No changes, right? No changes in case, nothing. So, simply as you write the class name, that same thing should be the name of the constructor. Constructors don't have return types, not even void. Okay, so we actually omit the part of return type. A constructor is automatically called when an object is created. If we do not specify a constructor, C++ compiler generates a default constructor for us, accepts no parameter and has no antibody, that is called as default constructor. So till now, whenever we were creating objects, the default constructor was automatically called by the compiler, right? Now we have to actually
Ma'am.
think, we have to explicitly write.
Yes, Nitant.
Ma'am, a gray screen is visible on the screen.
Uh, does anyone else finds the problem?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Let me reshare it. Hmm, let me share my whole screen. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Write the constructor and learn how the members of the object body, that is not even void. Okay, so we actually omit the part of return type. A constructor is automatically called when an object is created. If we do not specify a constructor, C++ compiler generates a default constructor for us, accepts no parameter and has no antibody, that is called as default constructor. So till now, whenever we were creating objects, the default constructor was automatically called by the compiler, right? Now we have to actually think, we have to explicitly write the constructor and learn how the members of the objects are getting initialized, right? Now there are some characteristics of constructor, that the constructor should be declared in the public section only. They do not have return type, not even void, therefore they return nothing. They cannot be inherited, though derived class can call the base class constructor. So inheritance is not possible in case of special functions constructors. Like other C++ functions, they can have default arguments. We have already learned the concept of default argument, right? They cannot be virtual. This keyword will be learning afterwards. They cannot refer to their addresses. Why? Because they are called automatically by the compiler. Okay, we'll learn why we cannot have that. Okay, an object with a constructor cannot be used as a member of union. Okay, then they make implicit calls to operators new and delete when memory allocation is required. So this is the answer of why we cannot refer to the addresses, because at the time means they get memory dynamically, so that's why we cannot refer to the addresses. When a constructor is declared for a class, initialization of the class objects become mandatory. So whenever we are construct writing the constructor of a class, then we compulsorily need to initialize the object. Okay, then we have the types of constructors. Basically there are four types of constructors. First is default constructor. You can see there are empty parameters. Okay, then we have parameterized constructor. You can see there will be parameters compulsorily. Then we have a copy constructor, in which you can see that we have a const keyword, then we have object by reference. Okay, and then we have dynamic constructor. We'll see every type of constructor one by one. First is default constructor. So default constructor is the constructor which doesn't take any arguments. It has no parameters, right? if you want, it shouldn't need to have the body as well. It should have no parameters and no body. But if you want to provide some body, that's also fine. Even if we do not define any constructor explicitly, the compiler will automatically provide a default constructor implicitly, which was the case till now. Right now, we are focusing on constructor and destructor, so that's why we have to learn how the objects are getting initialized, how the members of the objects are getting initialized. So let's take an example how we can write a constructor. You can see that we have a class construct, and we have in public section two members A and B of integer type. Now you can see that we have a default constructor, right? This is the same name as class name, and we have no parameters. But in the body, what we have done is we have initialized the members A and B. Okay. Now in the main, we have created the object. Okay, and you can see that we are just simply writing the value of A and B. What we'll get as output, we'll get 10 and 20 as output, because constructors are used to initialize the members. Right now, let's take this same example and see, if you do not provide the initial values to your members, then what will happen? What value your members get initially, and whenever those values are being replaced, then what will happen? Okay, so okay, when you compile and run this program, you will get the output 10 and 20 respectively. Okay, but if you do not do this, then which by default value will be take random garbage value, right? Because A and B are local. Okay, so the automatic variables take initial values, garbage values, right? So we need to initialize them, and that initialization can be done in the default constructor, right? So that's the case over here. We get output like this. Then second is parameterized constructor. It is possible to pass arguments to constructors. Typically, these arguments help initialize an object when it is created. Okay. In this particular example, we were only writing the object, right? And when this normal object is created, the default constructor is automatically called. But the default constructor which compiler calls is doesn't have this initialization, right? It is empty body and empty brackets. Okay, so the variables will be getting garbage value initially, but and that's why we have like get function, means get function to take the initial values of the variable from the user, right? But now, as we are now introducing constructors, in default constructor you may add the initial values of your members, right? And if you create multiple objects, so for that multiple objects as well, the same values will be taken. Suppose we are creating suppose 1. Okay, and same thing we call in C1. Let me just put slash and put this. See, in both the objects, the value of A and B remains same, because we have initialized A and B by 10 and 20, right? So you can do this. Okay. Parameterized constructor, we can have the parameters as well, right? Now, when you define the constructor's body, we need to use the parameters to initialize the object, right? Now, let's see how we can do that. When an object is declared in a parameterized constructor, the initial values have to be passed as argument to the constructor function. Okay. The normal way of object declaration may not work, so the constructors can be called implicitly or explicitly. Now this is the example of explicit call when you write the class name and you create the object, and by providing the equal to sign you again write down the class name and in between the brackets you pass the parameter. Now this is the example of parameterized constructor. Okay, an implicit call means you just write down the name of the class, then you create the object and in between the round brackets so you pass the parameter. Okay, according to the constructor, if you have taken 3 parameters into the constructor, then you need to pass 3 parameters over here. Okay, what are the uses of parameterized constructor? It is used to initialize the various data elements of different objects with different values when they are created, right? It is used to overload the constructors. We know the keyword, we know the word overload. It is the method of polymorphism, means different functions having same name but different parameters and different return types. But as there is no return type in constructor, we have to only focus on the number of arguments, right? So you can overload your constructors. Can we have more than one constructor in a class? Yes, it is called as constructor overloading. Okay. Let's say example of constructor overloading. Let's see this example. We have x and y in private. Now you can see that we have a parameterized constructor created with two integer parameters, and we have get x and get y functions which returns the value of x and y. Okay, now while creating the object, this is implicit call to parameterized constructor. As you can see, 10 and 15 are integer values, so this line will invoke the parameterized constructor. Okay, now you can do it explicitly as well. How you can do it explicitly? You just create the object by providing the equal to sign. Again, you call the parameterized constructor. This is explicit call of parameterized constructor. Both will work similarly. You can see the value of x, and y are 10, 20 and 15. Okay, which is explicit call. And when I put it into the comments and implicitly, then the values will be 10 and 15 which were passed, right? Now what will happen? The value 10 will be given to x1, the value 15 will be given to y1, okay? And ultimately the value of x1 will be given to the original member which is x, and the value of y1 will be given to original variable which is y. Okay, then the x and y which are the actual members will be initialized, right? So this 10 and 15 are called as actual parameters which is used to initialize the class members, right? And after that what we are doing is we are normally calling the functions get x and get y, right? So this is parameterized constructor. Then we have a copy constructor. Now what is the meaning of copy constructor? A copy constructor is a member function which initializes an object using another object of the same class. Okay, so suppose you have an existing object and you want to create a copy of that object. So basically we use copy constructor. A copy constructor has the following general prototype, so which we need to compulsorily keep in mind because it is established in the compilers as well. So how you can write the copy constructor? You write the class name in between the brackets. You compulsorily write the const keyword because we are making sure that the copy which we are creating is readable only. Okay, it's not changeable, right? So then we write down the class name and then we provide ampersand and old object based on which you want to create the copy, right? So that will be existing object. So you can see that we have passed the object by reference, right? When is copy constructor called? So there are some cases in which the copy constructor is called. First one is when an object of the class is returned by value when an object of the class is passed to a function by value as an argument, when an object is constructed based on another object of the same class like this, when the compiler generates a temporary object, right? You can see that whenever we are having return by value, call by value thing, a copy is created, right? So basically whenever a copy is created, in those cases the copy constructor will be called. It is however not guaranteed that the copy constructor will be called in all these cases, because C++ standard allows the compiler to optimize the copy away in certain cases, right? But these are the following cases in which generally the copy constructor is called. And this is the compulsory. The third case is compulsory, in which copy constructor needs to be called. There are some points. Whenever we define one or more non-default constructor means either parameterized constructor, copy constructor, or dynamic constructor, right? Non-default constructor with parameters for a class, default constructor without parameters should also be explicitly defined, as the compiler will not provide a default constructor in this case. However, it is not necessary, but it's considered the best practice to always define a default constructor. Let me show you an example. In this particular case, we haven't written the default constructor and we are not getting any errors as well, right? But what if I create one more object? What if, right? I create one more object. You can see that no match found for this function P2, right? That means if you just create a default constructor, error will be removed. Okay, so whenever you create any non-default constructor, the creation of default constructor gets necessary, compulsory actually. Okay, in some compilers based on the object you create. If you are creating a normal object without any parameters, then it is compulsory in code blocks. Okay, there are some compilers which are exceptions. And if you suppose passed different values and you haven't created all constructor, then there will be no error. Okay, so it's totally up to compiler and the type of object you are creating. Okay, so it's a good practice. If you are creating any non-default constructor, you need to write the default constructor. Okay. When is user-defined copy constructor needed? So if we don't define our own copy constructor, the C++ compiler creates a default copy constructor for each class, which does a member-wise copy between objects. Okay, the compiler created copy constructor works fine. We need to define our own copy constructor only if an object has pointers or any runtime allocation of the resources like file handling or network connection or anything like that. Okay, so you may create in such cases a copy constructor, and otherwise it's fine. Can we make copy constructor private? Up till now we have learned that you have to create constructors into the public section only, right? Now, can we create copy constructor in private section? The answer relies in this cases, right? You need to keep these cases in mind. And the answer is yes, a copy constructor can be made private. When we make a copy constructor private in a class, objects of that class become non-copyable, right? Constant. This is particularly useful when our class has pointers or dynamically allocated resources, right? In such situations, we can either write our own copy constructor or make a private copy constructor so that users get compile error rather than surprises at runtime, right? Why argument to a copy constructor must be passed as a reference? So a copy constructor is called when an object is passed by value, right? Copy constructor itself is a function. So if we pass an argument by value in a copy constructor, a call to copy constructor would be made to call copy constructor, which becomes non-terminating chain of call, right? Therefore, compiler doesn't allow parameters to be passed by value. If you if you just remove the ampersand sign, then in some compilers it will show you error because it is a compulsory syntax passing the object by reference, right? But why it is only by reference? So the answer relies over here, because when copy constructor is called whenever we pass object by value to a function, and as constructor itself has functions, when you just pass object by value it will call the copy constructor, and it is again a function by passed by value, so it will again call the copy constructor, which will be non-terminating situation. Okay, so this is the example of copy constructor. You can see that we have x and y. This is our parameterized constructor, right? This is our copy constructor. You can see the syntax. We have const keyword, class name, ampersand. Suppose we have p. We have p. Okay, and we are initializing our original members x and y, x and y. Yeah. Now we have getX function and we have getY function. Okay, which just returns the value of x and y respectively. Now this particular line will call the parameterized constructor. So 10 will be given to x1, 15 will be given to y1, which will ultimately initialize x and y, which are the original class members. Okay. Then this is the method 1 of in a copy constructor, right? And while writing the new object, you pass the equal to sign and you pass the old object, right? This is the method 1. And this is method 2. You pass the old object in between the brackets of new object. Okay, this is the method. Okay, both work similarly. Let's see the output. Okay, you can see the output. The values of initial values of P1 and P2 are 10 and 15 because we have used this value in parameterized constructor which we have passed. See, P1 is parameter. P1 will invoke parameterized constructor and we have passed 10 and 15 as values. And P2 is basically the copy of P1, non-changeable copy of P1. So the value of P2s are 10 and 15 only. Okay. This is method 1. Let's try method 2.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, what is this P in constructor that is declared above?
Which one?
Ma'am, in the constructor. Yes, ma'am. End P and then P dot xy, P dot y, that thing.
See, x and y are our normal class variables, right? Class members, right? Now this point is our class name. Okay, this is the syntax of copy constructor only. First you need to compulsorily write const keyword, then whenever you are creating an object, so how do we write it? We write first the class name and then we write the its object, right? But over here as told that in copy constructor you must pass object by reference, so that's why we have written ampersand p. So p is the object of class point by reference,
Okay, ma'am.
right? And it must be constant because we are creating a copy and we need to make sure that it is non-changeable.
Okay, ma'am.
right? So what we are doing over here, that using, like, we are actually getting the values of x and y into this copy constructor. Okay, so we are ultimately copying, we are just doing the copy, right?
Yeah, ma'am.
Ma'am,
So over here the values are being given to the object.
Okay, ma'am. Got it.
Over here the called, yeah, the calling object will be p2, right? So over here p1 and p both are pointing to the same location, because both of them are just the p1 is the original object and p is the name given as reference to the same location, right?
Yes, ma'am. Got it.
Got it? Yeah, okay.
ma'am,
Answer should
Yes.
ma'am, why can't the calling object here be predefined?
Like,
Like, ma'am, that P2 point P2 what we have written, ma'am, here P2 is just now created. It was not predefined, and if it is predefined, then it would not work. So why is that?
okay, so you are saying that first you write P2 and in other line you will write P2 equals to P1. Like
Yeah.
that you are saying?
Yes. If we have created that object, ma'am, previously, and then we are using it as a copy constructor, then it will not work, ma'am, because it should be defined at that point only. That was my question. Why is that?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. See, so the ultimate use of constructors are to initialize the objects while they are created. Okay, but if you are doing something like this point p1 and you are like passing the parameterized values and then comma p2, okay, that's it, you are writing that line, and in the second line you are doing p2 equals to p1, then it becomes like it is the case of polymorphism. Okay, because we are overloading the equal to operator, so that will learn in operator overloading chapter. Are you getting?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, so at the time of object declaration only they should be initialized. So if you are only using the constructors, then this two methods only work. Okay, but if you want to do it in the other line, like first predefining the objects and then using them, then it is the case of operator overloading, which we'll learn in next unit. Clear?
Yes, ma'am. And
Yeah,
ma'am, that const keyword what we have mentioned, is it always compulsory, ma'am? Because without that also it is working fine.
it is working, but we have to make sure that we are doing a copy, so it's not changeable.
Okay, okay.
Okay, yeah. Anybody else has any doubts? Okay.
should be there, and there shouldn't be any errors. You can see there is no errors. Okay, and same answer is there. Clear? So both methods work. Okay, both methods. Okay, method 1 and method 2, both methods work for creating the, for calling the copy constructor, right? This will be your output. Now fourth one is dynamic constructor. What is dynamic constructor? So the constructors can also be used to allocate memory while object creation. Now this will enable the system to allocate the right amount of memory for each object when the objects are not of the same size. Okay. Allocation of memory to objects at the time of their construction is known as dynamic construction of objects. So basically, in constructors, if we allocate memory at runtime using new and delete operators, those constructors becomes dynamic constructors. Okay, and those initialization of the objects becomes the dynamic construction of the object. The memory is created with the help of new operator and deleted using the delete operator. Okay, let's see the example. See, when you see normally, if we do not have this part, when you see this normally, we do not have this part, you will see that this is a default constructor only, right? If you see this without these two lines, you will understand that it is a parameterized constructor only, right? And this is a normal DIS function which returns the value stored at like the value of the pointer. Okay. Now, as you can see in the main, we have created a normal object and we have used d1 and the bracket, so it will call the parameterized constructor, right? So this d will be connected over here and this d1 will be connected over here. So the 9 value will be given to v, and according to the integer, the memory is created. So p will be pointing to integer v base address, and the value at that place will be 9, right? So when you compile the program, you will get 10 and 9 values, because over here the value is dynamically given, which is 10. Okay, because it is a default constructor. And over here we have called the parameterized constructor. So while creation of the object, we pass the value to the parameter. Okay, so your normal constructors can become dynamic constructors if you just use the new and delete operator. Yeah. Okay. Now, can you have multiple constructors in a class? Yes, we have already seen the example. You can have default constructor, parameterized constructor, copy constructor in the single class, right? C++ compiler has an implicit constructor which creates objects even though it was not defined in the class. This works well as long as we do not use any other constructor in the class. So basically we are talking about the default constructor. As soon as we create the object, default constructor is automatically called even though we have not created it. But as we as we write down any non-default constructor, then default constructor gets compulsorily to be written by the user. However, once we define a constructor, we must also define the do nothing implicit constructor, which is default constructor. Example in which we have multiple different types of constructor in the same class. You can see the class name is add. This is our default constructor. This is our parameterized constructor, and this is our copy constructor. And at the end, we have a display function. Okay. So what will be the output over here? It will be 0, 25, and 25 because A2 has 10 and 15.
Yes.
Ma'am, can we have more than one default constructor or parameterized constructors?
You can have only one default constructor but more than one parameterized constructor. But you have to just change the types of parameters.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks.
See, because the default constructor gets no parameters, right? So it is highly unlikely to have multiple default constructors. Like to bifurcation will be it won't happen. So it will throw an error only.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
so the parameterized constructors will works in a similar way like the function overloading thing.
Yes. You have to just make sure that the parameters are different, number of parameters and types of parameters.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Seen as parameters which will invoke parameterized constructor. So m will be given 10 and n will be given.
See, this is the ultimate example of function overloading only, because these are the constructors are nothing but special functions, right? And we are just making sure that there are difference in parameters. So ultimately these are function overloading example only. But if you are specifically asking about the parameterized constructor, yes, you can have multiple parameterized constructor, but you have to just make sure that there are no similar types of and similar number of arguments, right? You can do that.
15. So total will be 25 because we are returning the total. Okay. Now A3 is the copy of A2 only, so that's why the value will be 25. But in A1, which will invoke the default constructor, the basic values are 0, 0. So the addition will be 0. So that's why we are getting this as output, and this is the example of multiple constructor in the same class, which is constructor overloading. Clear? Now, can we have default values of the constructors? Yes. Let's see the example. We have a class complex with two arguments. First is float real and another is float image equals to 0. So this is default argument, right, which is replaceable. The default value of the argument image is 0, and when you do this complex, which is a class MC1, which is the object, 5.0 assign the value 5.0 to real, right? You need to remember the previous chapters as well, to the real variable, and 0.0 to imaginary variable, right? Which is the default argument. When you create another object by the two parameters, then also it will work perfectly fine, because 3.0 will be given to imaginary variable, right? 0 will be replaced by 3.0 and 2.0 will be given to real variable, right? This is the default constructor. As you can see, there are no parameters. It is our class name and scope resolution, and this is our default constructor. This is our default constructor. Sorry, this is our parameterized constructor with default argument. Okay. Okay, the default argument constructor can be called with either one argument or no argument. That's also fine. Clear? When called with no arguments, it becomes the default constructor. Right?
It means, suppose if you have a constructor with one argument only and you are making that argument just a second. So if you have created that constructor with one argument and you have provided it as default argument, then when you try, when you just call the like create an object and you pass no parameters, then it will connect to default argument, default constructor only, because you have passed no parameters, right? Oh.
So we have to learn about basic values are 0, 0. So this is the default constructor. As you can see, there are no parameters. It is our class name and scope resolution, and this is our default constructor. This is our default constructor. Sorry, this is our parameterized constructor with default argument. Okay.
I'll have to reshare my screen, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, the default argument constructor can be called with either one argument or
Yeah.
no
There is
argument.
only
That's
one
also fine.
argument and
Clear?
it is default argument. So
When
whenever
called,
when you just omit the argument while writing the constructor, then it will call the default constructor. That's what this lines wants to say.
with no arguments, it becomes the default constructor, right? So, can you dynamically initialize the objects? What is the meaning of that? So, providing initial values to objects at runtime. Advantage, we can provide various initialization to different objects. What is the benefit? This provides the flexibility using different formats of data at runtime depending upon the situation. So basically, we can we can like flexibly use different initialization of different objects at runtime. We do not need at compile time only. So let's see the example. You can see that you can we have a class X with integer and float one member. We have this parameterized constructor and a display function. And in the main, you can see that we have integer and float one parameters each. We are taking it from the user, and as the actual parameters, while creating the object, we are passing the parameters in terms of not only value but the variables. right, which has been taken from the user. So instead of compile time, we have done it runtime. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible, because ultimately the value of A will be given to P and the value of B will be given to Q, and the value of P will be furthermore given to N, and value of Q will be given to ABG, which are the original data members of the class, right? It will be your output. Whatever you provide, it will be given to your members. Okay? Using the object. You can see that we have used the object name dot operator in the function name. Now destructor. A destructor is used to destroy the objects that have been created by constructor. Like constructor, the destructor is a member function with the same name as the class name, but it precedes by the tilde sign, which is about the tab key. Okay, so suppose this is integer, which is our class name. So you can have destructor if you have created constructor, and you just have to put the tilde sign. Okay, now destructor is of only one type, without any parameter. A destructor never takes any argument, nor does it returns any value. Okay, it will be invoked implicitly by the compiler on exit from the program or block or function. This is mainly to clean up the storage that is no longer accessible. Yeah. It is good practice to declare destructors in a program since it releases memory space for further use. Only one destructor is written to destroy all the constructors. Okay. Whenever new is used to allocate memory in the constructor, we should use delete to free that memory. The primary use of destructors is to free up the memory reserved by an object destroyed. Destructor will be called in reverse order of the constructor creation. Let's say example, we have class X. This is our default constructor. This is parameterized constructor. This is our copy constructor. Okay, and we have created only one destructor with tilde sign and same as class name without any parameter. Okay, now let's see, we have this class name, we have x1, x2 and x3, three objects created. X1 will invoke the default constructor because it has no parameters, we have not initialized it dynamically. Then we have passed x2 in between the brackets only one parameter, which will invoke the parameterized constructor. And we have created x3 based on x2, so it will call the copy constructor. Okay, so you can see that first x1 was created, then x2, and then x3 was created, right? So, and after that, at the time of program termination, whenever the destructor is called, it will start destroying from the end. So first it will destroy x3, then it will destroy x2, and then it will destroy x1. So you will get something like this as output. You can see that only one constructor is called three times because we have created three objects. Okay, so first x3 will be destroyed, x2 will be destroyed, and x1 will be destroyed. I hope you guys are clear about that. Now let's see the program. See, there is only one program 23rd which includes the concept of all the types of constructor in the same program. Okay. Now we have to write a program having class time with data members hour, minute and second. Okay. Now we have to have get data function, put data function. Now in get data you just enter the values of hour, minute and second. In put data function you just print the time in this particular format. HH, MIN, SEC in between columns. Clear? Now, in this you need to have default constructor, parameterized constructor, copy constructor and destructor. Okay. While writing the parameterized constructor, you need to have 52 as default value for second. Clear? Now, why do we, first of all, first question, why do we have constructors to initialize the objects, right? So you need to create your program likewise. Does anybody has any doubts?
So anybody has any doubts regarding this? I'll upload the PPT. Okay, I'll upload the PPT. Do you guys have any doubts?